Hello, welcome back to Mango Cafe Art. Grab a seat and get cozy. For today's brew, we're serving up Fairies for February Art Challenge, a recap. But before we move on to today's special menu item, here's a free appetizer. Hope you like it. Fairies for February is a month-long art challenge hosted by Farx and me, we're Mango Cafe Art, where we draw fairies throughout February. There is a full list with 15 prompts, as well as a shorter version with only 5 prompts. I followed the full prompt list while Farx took on the shortened prompt list. A big thank you to everyone who joined in. It was wonderful seeing all of your fairy creations, and we truly appreciate your participation. Thankfully, you guys didn't make me cry. Looking forward to that. Hopefully you guys join in. Please join in or I will cry. I will actually cry. I'm not even lying to you. I will cry. I will cry. My rainbow fairy was inspired by how there are usually different types of fairies. I envisioned her as a sky fairy, and she in particular was responsible for making rainbows. She makes rainbows after dark stormy days to cheer up everyone. I really like the softer pastel rainbow colors I used, and I love her pink iridescent rainbow edge here. Overall, I liked how this turned out, and I think it's just really pretty.
This was a good challenge for me because of how far out of my comfort zone it put me. See, I don't think I've ever drawn a fairy, nor am I accustomed to using these kind of colors. So this was a great art exercise for me. I really like how I tried some foreshortening and this kind of pose that I have going on here. I think it's pretty interesting.
And this is how the other artists interpreted the rainbow prompt. What I love most about Art Addictive's Rainbow Fairy are the wings. The way they peek through the clouds is such a nice touch. I also really enjoy all the different textures going on in the drawing. I think it all adds to the whimsy of it. I also really loved the rainbow wings on Lardo Art's Rainbow Fairy. Whether intentional or not, I think it's amazing how the fluffy parts of the outfit resemble clouds. And I think it's very on brand and fits the theme. For my ladybug fairy, I knew right away I wanted to give her ladybug wings. And I also thought it would be cute for her to be holding a ladybug. I feel like I could have improved her outfit, but honestly, my brain kind of blanked out for that part. Overall, my favorite part of this one is definitely the ladybug wings. I think they're really interesting, and this is how the other artists interpreted the prompt. I really love the hair on Lardo Art's Ladybug Fairy. The way it curls out and resembles antennae is such a creative touch. Overall, I just adore how Ladybug everything feels. It's really on point. Like, it doesn't get any more ladybug than this. My idea for the forest fairy was of a nature fairy fluttering through a dead forest and bringing it back to life. I'm really proud of this one because the background took forever, but it turned out pretty good. And this is how the other artists interpreted the prompt. What I love most about Lardo Art's Forest Fairy is how regal and elegant and beautiful the Forest Fairy looks. She truly feels like the queen of all the Forest Fairies. I always love drawing and coloring butterfly wings, so this one was a lot of fun for me. I chose the monarch butterfly as my inspiration because I wanted to create a bold, confident, and classy fairy. Something royal, you know. I definitely think this diva embodies all of those elements.
When I was young, I used to enjoy catching butterflies, but they flew too crazily all over the place. Imagine what it would be like riding on one. That's the inspiration for this drawing. In terms of the story behind it though, I imagine that this fairy has like a defect with her wings where they didn't develop fully. So she decided that's not going to stop her, that's not going to slow her down. She's actually going to become the first and obviously the best butterfly rider ever, so she can also fly.
And this is how the other artists interpreted the prompt. What I love about Lardo Art's Butterfly Fairy is not just that it's a monarch butterfly as well, but the unique spin on it. Fairy has a more hard-working, hunter-inspired vibe, which I think makes it really cool. The inspiration for my daisy fairy came from the idea of walking through a field of blooming daisies, inhaling the fresh flower scent, and stumbling across this darling cutie sitting on one of the flowers. I like everything about this drawing. This and the butterfly fairy are two of my favorites, and this is how the other artists interpreted the prompt. My favorite thing about Lardo Art's Daisy Fairy is the daisy dress and how overall the fairy has an elegant soft beauty. It gives off a really pretty gentle vibe. The inspiration for this fairy comes from the idea of her taking a short tea break. She is responsible for enhancing the speed at which the mushrooms in her garden decompose leaf litter and animal remains. I think this is also a favorite of mine. I like how all the colors work really well together. And this is how the other artists interpreted the prompt. I love everything about Lardo Art's Mushroom Fairy, especially the hat. The hat is so cute. Before we continue on with the rest of the challenge, let's take a quick refresher. To be honest, I wasn't too sure what to do with this prompt. My mom suggested the fairy cottage being in a tree, so I just went with that. I do think the cottage turned out quite cute, and I tried to match the cottage to the fairy, so it would be super easy to tell. Yeah, that's her house.
For this one, I thought, wouldn't it be funny if the fairy was in a cottage making a cottage? So that's exactly what I did, and I think it turned out pretty splendid.
this is how the other artists interpreted the prompt. I think Lardo Art was really clever in using an old tree stump as the base of the cottage. I think it's very fitting, and I think it's also very convincing. Like, I could see fairies living in tree stumps. For the Rose Fairy, all I knew was that I wanted to feature a giant rose. But as I worked on it, it ended up turning into something a bit more melodramatic. A piece with the Rose Fairy dancing on some sort of stage with her giant rose. And this is how the other artists interpreted the prompt. What I love the most about Lardo Art Rose Fairy is how there's a mirroring between the fairy and the rose. They both have hard exteriors. The fairy with her studded bracelets and piercings, and the rose with its thorns. But once you look past those things, both can spark happiness. The idea behind this drawing is that this little fairy flew a bit too far from home, and now she's trying to find her way back. She's tired and hungry, so she decides to take a little break, munching on some strawberries and taking a nap before continuing her journey home. I think this is really cute because she's mid-flight, mid-bite, and still somehow managing to take a nap. And this is how the other artists interpreted the prompt. I really love Lardo Art's Strawberry Fairy. Her curly eyebrows are such a fun touch, and paired with the glasses and the fact that she's flying around in her baking mittens, she just radiates so much fun. I think this was the first time I ever drew a bunny, and I am really proud that it turned out looking like a bunny. You know how some people challenge themselves by bull riding? Well, that's basically what's happening here with this fairy. She's a bunny rider, the best bunny rider in the whole garden.
The story behind it is that this fairy just likes to cause problems. So one day she decided she was just going to play a prank on a sleeping rabbit, and now the rabbit is awake and it's not happy.
And this is how the other artists interpreted the prompt. I just thought that Lardo Art's bunny fairy was really adorable. The idea for this fairy was that she found a fresh harvest of peaches and decided to do her best to bring back all the peaches to her village so everyone could enjoy them. And this is how the other artists interpreted the prompt. So on Instagram, Lardo Art's description for his peach fairy reads, "Not only is she proud of the shape and quality of her peaches she grows, but she's also proud of her own." Get it? Because if you don't, I'ma just have to leave it there. Before we continue on with the rest of the challenge, let's take another quick refresher. My idea for the bee fairy was to draw the queen bee fairy, the bee fairy of all bee fairies. I love how impractical her skirt is. It's fitting though, since real queen bees don't have to go foraging or make honey or protect the hive, so her outfit can be as dramatic and impractical as she wishes. I think this one is one of my favorites too. And this is how the other artists interpreted the prompt. Lardo Art had a completely different interpretation, which I loved. Lardo Art's bee fairy was more inspired by worker bees and how they do have to protect the hive. It's got this bee fairy battle warrior vibe, and I absolutely love it. I also really like the stinger gauntlet. I think that was very creative and very clever. For this fairy, I had some fun with wordplay. This fairy has a bowl. That's a bowl? I love how this turned out, especially her quiet confidence and elegance. She's a fashion diva, but don't mess with her, cause she might snipe you. I also think she has a very magical girl-esque vibe, and I absolutely love that since I'm a big fan of magical girls.
For the bowl prompt, I went really basic with the concept because I wanted to put more focus on the pose and the details. This is also why I left out the background, but I quite like how this came out. I really do enjoy the details in this drawing, but I think I could work on my colors a little bit more.
And this is how the other artists interpreted the prompt. I think Lardo Art's Bowl Fairy is still adorable. I really like the colors used. Pinks are always a favorite of mine, and I think her dress is really cute. I think Lardo Art have mentioned that she's the queen of ballerinas, and yes, I can definitely see it. For this fairy, the story is that Mr. Froggy is a true gentleman, shading the fairy from the light, scattered showers, and protecting her wings from getting wet. I really enjoyed this drawing, and I think Mr. Froggy is the star of the show. I love his bow tie and tutu. And this is how the other artists interpreted the prompt. My favorite part of Lardo Art's Frog Fairy is her hair. It reminds me of wet aquatic plants, so I think she would definitely be a swamp or pond type fairy. I was thinking this fairy is a water goddess or a water deity type fairy, and she often gets lonely because other fairies avoid visiting the pond because they are afraid of getting their wings wet. This was also my first time giving a character blue skin, and I think I did a pretty good job. I'm really happy with the colors I used overall, and I especially feel proud of how I colored the water. It's not something I usually draw, but I think I did a good job with the water. And this is how the other artists interpreted the prompt. I think Lardo Art's Pond Fairy is absolutely beautiful. The shades of blue are so pretty, and her outfit is just as stunning. I also love the glowy effects coming from the moon and the pond. It adds a really magical touch. Before we continue on, let's take a quick refresher. And we're done. This challenge was not only fun but also insightful. It pushed me to draw and color things I wouldn't have normally attempted to, and in the process I realized, hey, I'm more capable than I thought. Sometimes stepping outside of your comfort zone can lead to a pleasant surprise.
This was a challenge for me, as I typically don't draw fairies. Furthermore, drawings with so many colors is foreign to me. I liked how it turned out though, and it really showed me some areas in my art that need some work, and also some areas in my art that I'm pretty decent at.
A huge thank you to Art Addictive and Lardo Art for joining in on this challenge. It was so much fun seeing your interpretations of the prompts, and I really truly appreciate you both sharing your amazing artwork. Yeah, so that wraps up today's special. Thank you so very much for stopping by our Mango Cafe. If you enjoyed your time here, don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss out on future specials. We'd love to serve up more art for you again soon. Until next time, take care and stay creative.